Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Strange Times Poetry Broadcast. I'm coming to you live from the Poetry Bookshelf to read you 3 uplifting poems. Today I'm going to be talking about recovery. Not recovery from addiction, but recovery from loss. I think a lot of poems are not necessarily uplifting in that they're cheery, but are uplifting in the way that they portray survival. And somehow the poem is part of the ritual of how we survive these losses as the writer, as the speaker, but also there's the connection that these works give us, that these things can be survived to be written about, that they can be processed, that I think and recovery is an interesting word because what does it imply? What is being covered over again? Is it that rawness? Is it that the rawness is being recovered like a wound with new skin? Are we getting something back? I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what recovery looks like from all this, but I feel like these poems show that we can make it from many things. So the first poem is by Rachael Eliza Griffiths, who is a four-way books press author, and I've always loved this poem, and I hadn't brought it out yet because it's called Good Death, so it's written in reaction to the speaker's loss of their mother, and it's definitely, there's hard moments in this poem, but I think in the end it becomes an act of resilience. There's a ritual at the end of the poem that we'll get to that shows how the speaker gets through all of this. It's both through the poem and through other things as well. So we'll see. Good death. Of words placed in their best black clothes, of that darkness full, of the laugh forged of dust that spilled its gold light into the tomb, of the reef carved upon the copper vault, of the ivory city, bones like trumpets, blowing you away from us in song, of the city again where you will be welcomed by vultures, of the road between the dates, a short slash, an usher in a gold hat, of the pronunciation of sorrow always in summer, of the snake who suffered the story, of the afterlife and its downpour of ordinary rites, of rites I enact in my broken thoughts, of my fever waving its anguish until the match goes out in disbelief, of the 9 stars bleeding mercy beneath the roof of God, God, and God, of the peace and suffering my people have been promised, of the clean white clothes I gave the undertaker. Here are the stockings, I said, not knowing whether they would match her skin, of the poems I've been trying to write. Die, I say, go elsewhere for songs, the food and the appetite, of my father's shoulders in a black suit, of downpour again, of the animals who charge me with horns when I offer my clay ribs, for visitations, of the hot comb I cradled on my knees in the bathroom, of the brutal gospel of hair, untouched toothbrush, clothes in closets with sale tags, of dreams where my teeth scatter like maple leaves, of what I will never remember, of the rain that makes my house float like empty bottles of glass, the dream where my white clothes grow flames, of what I will remember remembering, of the neon-colored nail polish on her hand I held at her deathbed, of what I hated to ask the night and gods, of the knees that remember the orange mud before the grass grew back, of you, reader, looking at my face here and reading because we all want to know how to bear it, of the strange, caring question their voices poured like grace over my side where I was trying to leave, get out of skin, of it being over again and again, of it beginning. They asked me, was it a good death? Was it a good death? Was there peace for all of us? Why should I want peace instead of my mother? Of the mothers who have always known while holding children in their wombs, why wasn't I told? Now I walk into the sea with my jewel of anguish and shake those human flowers from my new bald skull. So I love the moment in the poem where the speaker actually acknowledges that that people who are reading this poem are asking, how do we bear this? How do we bear our similar losses? And the poet doesn't know. The speaker doesn't know, but keeps writing. And in the end, now I walk into the sea with my jewel of anguish and shake those human flowers from my new bald skull. Somehow cutting off of the hair. And each of the lines of the poem is kind of like these strands, the repetition of. It's like these strands of hair that the poet finally, the speaker, shaves off and casts away. So maybe these are the lines that we let out and we cast away as a beginning, recovering by letting it leave. All right, the next poem that I'm going to read is by Sean Singer. Sean Singer is not a close friend of mine, but he was a legendary teacher in my high school. I heard when I came in, Sean Singer, who wrote his book that was published by Yale Younger Writers. This poet was at our school, and that already, even without him actually being here, sort of turned the place into somewhere where poetry was happening. And of course, there were other people who loved poetry too, other teachers who were mentors who loved poetry too. But even just the idea that he had been there, that he had started something, had brought something in, it's put into my mind, one day you could be this type of poet. You could write things that other people will read in books. And I was like, I want to have this book. I want to do this thing. So while not a close friend, definitely an inspiration. Sean Singer. This is called Days of Winter. Today in the taxi, I brought a Chinese couple, parents of a student at Columbia, from Amsterdam Avenue to JFK. The girl was crying, the mother was crying, etc. The parents sat in silence for most of the trip. They didn't speak English and I didn't speak Chinese. I did offer them a little package of tissues. On the other hand, the sun came out and it warmed to 24 degrees. A driver should find a fixed object on the road, such as a sign or a tree, and when the car in front passes it, count 3 seconds before his own car passes it. Then add a second for each hazard, rain or darkness. The road is not unlike a little pressed between vessel that the car pushes along its black bloodstream. A psalm instructs that it will be as it is said. I love this little piece. There's so much going on here. I love that the couple are riding back to the airport, and they've lost their daughter, or they're bringing their daughter home. There's loss there. And the speaker can't offer much, but offers them some tissues, and the sun comes out and it warms, but it doesn't quite. It's only 24 degrees, so it's not quite warm. I love that. And then that observation, and then that leads into this meditation about the fixed objects in the road and how you judge how fast you're going by watching the speed at which you pass these signs, and calculating what you have to add. And then the road moves. Instead of the road moving, it's the car that pushes the road underneath it. So there's all this play about who's holding still, who's moving. And I think, I don't know, I get a sense of moving through with this poem. It's not an easy day. It's not an easy day for this family. It's frigid out. We're thinking about the hazards that are adding time, the slowing of the car, as the car passes the fixed objects, as the car pushes the road along. The sense of movement in it gives me hope for some reason. It doesn't seem futile. It seems as if there's power in that, in moving through, in breathing through. And right now that might just be where we're at. We're just moving through. And it doesn't have to be glorified. I like that this poem, it does end on a psalm, but it's definitely a drop off. A psalm instructs it will be as it is said. It's very much let it be. So it shall be. I think that's kind of where we are right now. We're at the passing through. We don't know what it will be, but it will be as it will be. Something to hold on to. And the last poem that I'm going to read is called Blue. And it was inspired by listening to these three women who came and spoke to my class in Native American literature. The three of them were First Nations, and they were talking about how they have been trying to bring their languages back into their communities, and the loss that they grew up and they didn't know how to speak more than a word or so of their own language. And that process of recovery. How do you recover something that you physically in your life didn't even have? And yet it's still a recovery. It's lost. It wasn't, you were already born missing it. And how do you recover that? And what does that feel like? This is called blue. Sometimes you only have muscle memory to make blue, she says. It's everywhere in nature, the whole sky, the ocean, but nearly nowhere at the same time. At the same time, she only knows one word in her own language, my name, she says. Names everywhere, water crawling from Squantum Channel to the sea. We make blue from crushed robin eggs gathered from nests in the spring. She casts out her hand for blue, comes back without a catch, a clean palm. So one thing that you can't see, that's sort of interesting about, you can do the poetry on this page, is that even though she's coming back without a catch, the way the line break works, the clean palm, the blue of the sky actually is the catch. So there's both a loss that you can't grab onto, and yet you're also grabbing something. So there is, and that attempt at recovery is still ongoing. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you very soon. In the meantime, stay safe, stay sane, and good night. Bye!